The government has imposed, unless extended, a total of 60 days of quarantine in varying degrees on our communities in an attempt to address the coronavirus infections, mainly in the national capital region. During this time, and consequently under the Luzon-wide lockdown, we have seen a heavily punitive response by state security forces against curfew violators, relief volunteers, workers, indigenous peoples, and those who raise the problem of the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 emergency response. Approaching the end of the ECQ, we are alarmed that the government's priority continues to be focused on mobilizing the police and military, acquiring emergency powers for the president, and centralizing relief efforts in the hands of power brokers in the executive branch of the government. The lack of transparency and accountability, especially in the distribution of so-called financial and food assistance, continues to keep the population on edge. Many of the marginalized communities claim they have never received any support. Similarly, the allocations of international loans and foreign aid received by the Philippines are not divulged for public scrutiny. This gives rise to concern that the money, including a 275 billion peso budget allotted by the Bayanihan Law, may be funneled elsewhere while critical support to the healthcare sector remain grossly lacking. The dole-out and militaristic approach of government's COVID response also kept the public wholly reliant on state support instead of playing an important role in the crafting of solutions and implementing them. Meanwhile, the Philippines is nowhere near flattening the curve of infections, which now stands at 8,928 cases, with 603 deaths and 1,124 recoveries as of latest count. One can only imagine how ineptitude in governments can exacerbate the conditions of a vulnerable population under a global pandemic, from delays in travel restrictions, suspension of food supply chains, to VIP testing and unhampered POGO operations. Inadequate coordination among the concerned agencies resulted in not only confusion and misinterpretation of the guidelines between the national and local authorities, but delays in purchasing protective gear for frontliners, effective testing kits, accrediting facilities for testing, and assigning COVID-19 referral hospitals. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights and the UN Secretary General has called out the Philippines for its brutal imposition of lockdowns and for suppressing free speech. Special rapporteurs have urged the Philippines to end the discrimination against indigenous peoples defending their ancestral land. We agree with their assessment that government is securitizing the public health crisis towards cracking down on critical voices and human rights defenders. President Duterte threatened to have curfew violators shot and warned organized groups not to create trouble lest he finally declare martial law. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres report highlighted that human rights should guide the response and recovery to the health, social, and economic crisis affecting the world. He added that while the virus does not discriminate, its impacts do. Towards this end, iDefend and Para wish to contribute to a policy formulation that puts human rights at front and center of COVID-19 transition. As the Philippines has barely 2 weeks left until the lifting of the ECQ, we hope that the government takes this opportunity to institutionalize a more equal and just society as the new normal. This will lessen our vulnerabilities as a people in times of global crisis. The Comprehensive Human Rights Demands, or CORID-19, recognize that the historic inequalities in Philippine society resulted in disproportionate impacts of the public health crisis response. Its medium-term and long-term proposals emphasize a rights-based governance, which puts a premium on livelihood support and medical assistance, social empowerment, and protection of civil and political liberties. The 19-point agenda to curb COVID-19 highlights the need for policy discussions, such as return to work orders, to be based on effective and scientific RT-PCR based results, which can only be realized if public resources are primed for mass testing by the same. COVID-19 also stresses the importance of aggressive dissemination of accurate, relevant information and increased access to legal remedy for human rights violations under the ECQ and beyond. This has been released by iDefend and Para today, May 4, 2020.